I'm Choo and Guan from Malaysia. uh,
No, last but not least.
my experiences with CPTM, very honestly, is that I think it made me aware of the failings and weaknesses of myself as an individual and a human being. This is not to try to make the philosophy behind this group of like-minded people be elevated to some perceived level of intellect or whatever. But it is from observing the dynamics of the magic of what actually sparks and what actually happens when you see groups of so-called smart partners, we call ourselves, together. We have been sort of herded into this loose classifications of developed countries, developing countries, small states, emerging economies, and what have you, which I would summarize as a stratified world. But you see the contradiction when you attend a dialogue or smart partnership movement gathering. The most obvious initial observation you would see is that after you feel that you've been awed by the fact that I am now, first time in my life, I'm physically present, almost rubbing shoulders with people who are actually only real to me in the newspaper. A king, a sovereign king, a prime minister or a president who powerful, not so powerful, and then you observe them, because what you have been told or been made to believe of that person and what he represents by the newspaper is something that is not showing up in front of you visually. That it was never designed that way, but that is the power of the presence, when you are physically present. And the next thing is, in the dynamics of the dialogue, they are almost undressed. Yeah, they're quite transparent. After the initial moment of trying to square up with each other, suddenly when they begin to talk about serious issues, you have a sense that it's just like any ordinary concerned citizen with very ordinary problems, except that for them it's on a large scale. Communities, nations, regions. And there they are going, not wanting to admit it, asking from their counterpart, some very experienced, 20 odd years in power, some not so experienced, and some newly appointed with plenty of experience, not applied experience. And then you see the sincerity, because when the feedback and the reaction are given, you see the reaction of the men in that kind of a structured meeting or unstructured meeting. Those were the initial years when we were reacting to it. And then you go back and say that, for me, my background was in the civil service, in the diplomatic service. Um, from young, we took part in a lot of international meetings, conferences, and more private and more intense negotiations, negotiating meetings. But here you have that mass of humanity gathering, noise and all that. And yet in such a messy kind of a structure, they can come to try to sort out some very serious problems in a very unstructured manner. Then you start asking, something is showing up here that you do not understand. You go back, but it was fortunate that the way we were unstructured in that structure, contradictions. Is that over time you begin to feel that this is an animal that is very versatile. You address yourself as a promoter, someone who wanted to build something with no idea what the skeleton and what the flesh was going to look like or what the final form was going to be. We were basically just providing, as it were, a crucible or an incubator for something we do not know will appear. And I think people, the earlier set of people in the initial dialogues were particularly responsive. Real time, they were able to respond. I remember the first 3 dialogues, which was held very quickly. In the first 3 years, was different in the sense that we went in thinking we had a structure, but we actually had no structure, because I remember the very first dialogue, the morning session, already we had immediate feedback, real-time feedback. So this structure is not going down well with the participants. And immediately by the afternoon we changed. We changed, and we didn't know what we were changing. But we thought, okay, you don't like it this way, we do it so-called your way. But the ability to respond that way in a structured approach in an international or intergovernmental meeting, no way you can do that. There is protocol, there is agenda, there are printed papers and all that. You have to stick to it, and meaningless reading or prepared speeches. And then the outcome. But first, before you arrive at the outcome, you look at the participants. They were not like zombies like us, in a structured army. The leader of the delegation gets to speak, or the deputy speaks, or somebody next in line will be authorized to speak if the fellow had a tummy ache. But they, in unstructured form, they could arrive quicker in sort of defining what the common problem they were just throwing across to each other at the round table was, and then they were that fast in beginning to try to attempt a solution. But they were not asking for a solution. They were asking for a sampling of your reaction and how you dealt with that particular challenge. And here, nobody is prescribing, nobody is prescriptive. Nobody was offering any solution. They said we had that experience. I remember in the early years, we used to say, whenever they took us as a reference point, by that I mean, what Malaysia was doing. And then I remember some of us were almost forced to respond. Don't think that Malaysia was so clever. Whenever you look at, this industry, this sector and all that, we seem to have succeeded. So we had to caution, say that for every success that you saw in Malaysia, there were hundreds of failures that we couldn't share with you. But it was the dynamics of the dialogue process and its unstructured manner. They seem to have allowed that free-flowing exchange, more sincere, and it was that informal structure that actually, without intention, removed the artificial form that had always confined politicians and participants. Yeah, the posturing. recall. No, that's powerful. Because nobody needed to worry about whether they were right or wrong.
Actually, that was because smart.
Well, yeah, yes. I think we can all put it there in terms of detail. But I'm just recalling what my reaction was. And the other thing I thought was that there was no worry about whether this country was richer or poorer, whether it was Big Brother talking down to me, and therefore you don't talk back, because if it was in that classic structure, Big Brother talking to you because of a hidden agenda, they want something from you, and because you need to almost beg for something from them, you say things which you do not really mean, you know. So that defeats the whole purpose of a dialogue. But here, you have a structure. And believe me, when you're in diplomacy, you see all sorts of funny structure. And all sorts of filtering processes that comes in to nullify the effectiveness of those meetings. And here you really have something unstructured, which is delivering. But having said that, but once you are able to see that difference, which I think is very fundamental, then you begin to focus on the cumulative improvements. But of course, for us, I think as what is valuable as a smart partnership participant is that all of us can find in our own cultural references frame the rationalization and the explanation for its value. Many of us get confused or fail to identify the value of any interaction because we just can't identify in our terms of references the sets of benefit. But here in the smart partnership dialogue process, you can in your own individual way identify where it's coming from. And I suspect that one is a very powerful persuasive motivation for people to continue. That after that, you're hooked. You're addicted. So I think, and then of course, you know, you go on and until, like, for example, I've been associated since 1989. Whenever I can find time, you know, I will always take part. Most of the time, I find it more valuable because this is a platform for learning. You ask the chairman and Mihaila, and I think Lennox, he surprised me. I usually don't talk this much unless I'm provoked, you know. So, but when he gets you in that mood, this thing comes out.
Yeah.
And I like it because that is exactly the kind of reaction that the smart partnership movement gave me. Thank you.
Thank you, Choo. Thank you.